Welcome back on the onboarding. This is class 2 of 3. We'll go over the SOPs and policies. These 3 classes are needed for you to before you do your single, typically just one meeting with an instructor or mentor to make sure you're all set up so you can be observing and getting activated in training for the VATSIM Jacksonville RTAC. So let's move right along. We'll go over the facility administrative policy, the code of conduct, air traffic control tower, TRACON, and en route SOPs, and letters of agreements. The facility administrative policies establish the formal rules, regulations, procedures, guidelines that govern all members in the Jacksonville RTAC. These are overread by VAT USA and approved ahead of time. I put this link on the previous slides as well. You can actually just go to the Jacksonville website and click on the documents, and you will be able to see all the documents there. They tell you what the activity requirements are to stay active in the RTAC. They're not very severe. I think it's a few hours every quarter, and you can get hours in a variety of ways as a controller. So, what is the activity requirement? Well, it's 3 hours of activity a quarter. What counts of activity? Being in a position or going to a training session. What is the major designated airspace? We already said that before. Orlando International and the F-11 TRACON is the only major designated airspace in the Jacksonville RTAC. Remember, you are required to have an active email account. You are very strongly encouraged to create a Discord account, and you are very strongly encouraged to be on Discord when you are controlling. We do recognize that folks have lives and they might be away. You might be in the military, for example, and you're going to go on a deployment or TDY, and you'll be gone for more than 3 months when that happens. That's fine. Just send an email to staff@ZJXARTCC.org, and we will mark you as a leave of absence until you get back, and that way you will preserve your active position within our RTAC, and you won't have to worry about it. Similarly, if you have any issues that you think are breaking VATSIM policies, please email staff@ZJXARTCC.org so that we can investigate those issues. Typically, if you have issues, they'll be related to the code of conduct, and I'm going to read all of these because it's really that important. I put these links to this in the class 1, so you can go back and get them there. Members should at all times be courteous and respectful to one another. That can be difficult if you have a pilot who really doesn't know what they're doing, but it's still demanded that you remain courteous and respectful at all times. If you'd like to know what that means or how to do that, the best way that I've seen is to listen to live ATC or Broadcastify or one of the real world scanner sites and see how the real controllers do it. When logging onto VATSIM as an observer, make sure that your call sign ends with an _OBS. All of them will be typically the same for you as an observer. The first 3 letters will be Zulu Juliet X-ray for ZJX, _, and then your initials, _, and then OBS. So as an observer, you'll be logging on that way every time. We'll go over that again in the practical setup for you. If you want to log on to a position as observation in a certain area and it's already occupied, or if you are training or you've already got your over the shoulder and you can now start doing delivery or ground, and someone else is already in that position, sorry, it's first come, first serve, so you'll have to wait till they get off before you can get on for that position. But there's tons of airfields in the Jacksonville RTAC, so and you're going to get experience anyway, and you will eventually want to learn all the different airfields. So feel free to go to a different airfield and cover delivery or ground and eventually tower. Use voice whenever possible. In fact, I don't know any controller who tries to do this via text. It's frustrating for you and it's frustrating for the pilot. If you don't have a good microphone, there are a variety for sale, and you can talk to a mentor or an instructor on where to get a decent headset with a decent microphone to use on VATSIM. Only use the frequencies that are authorized for that particular position. This really isn't an issue anymore. It used to be when you could manually type in the frequency. That's not the case anymore. With the new Audio for VATSIM software, when you log into your position and using the SOP, make sure you typed in the position correctly, uh, or the Audio for VATSIM won't work at all. It will recognize the position you typed in, and it will assign the frequency for you. So they'll talk about this when we do the setup, but your text messaging back and forth to pilots is occurring in the VRC or VStar software. And so you're setting up your position and frequency in that software for the text only. When it comes to the voice part, the audio part, that's audio for VATSIM. And those two are completely separate, actually. So you'll actually have their client set up and you'll have audio for VATSIM set up. And again, we'll talk about that hands-on in your online work with the mentor or instructor. So don't worry about it. Just understand that the client software for the radar control software is text, and Audio for VATSIM does the voice. You must be prepared to, at all times, to do text-based air traffic control to a pilot. So that means have a decent keyboard. And again, we'll show you how to make sure that your client is set up so you can do texting. Because we're talking in the real world about network traffic that goes to a server and comes back, the way this actually works is you will set up your software for the airfield you're working. We'll show you how to do that. You'll type in a couple commands to tell the software where you're working. And that information is going to go to the servers. The server is then going to look for any pilots in your area of the radius around your location. Now, if you're on clearance delivery or ground, you really don't need anything more than 10 nautical miles, and typically you don't need, 20 is pretty generous. And that also limits the number of pilots that the server is sending to you. So it reduces load on the server to minimize your visibility range only to what you absolutely need. The supervisors that routinely monitor this, the software is routinely monitoring this. If you log into a position that would be 20 nautical miles like delivery or ground, but you forgot and you left your software to say 50 nautical miles, that will immediately flag all the supervisors and they will be on your frequency or in the area within just a few minutes asking you to turn your visibility range back to the maximum allowed for your position. So tower is 50 nautical miles, TRACON is 150 nautical miles, en route 600 nautical miles, and as an observer it's 300 nautical miles. Now even though it's 300 nautical miles for you as an observer, if you're observing for the purpose of learning clearance delivery ground or tower, you should be setting your visibility range to 50 and not using up server bandwidth. If you're studying for en route, and you're observing the en route, you can set it to 300. And there are ways to set the software up that 300 doesn't limit you to be able to see all the aircraft. And you'll learn that by the en route controller mentors and instructors. So pay attention on the software. We'll show you how to do that. But pay attention that you're not exceeding your visibility range for the position that you're in. The Jacksonville Code of Conduct is very similar to the VATSIM policies, which the VATSIM policies and VET USA policies indicate intent. We get a little more granular in ours. Be friendly and patient. Be welcoming. Be considerate. Be respectful. Please be careful of the words you choose. Recognize that we have people from all over the world who will get on the simulator and come into the Florida Jacksonville RTAC, and they'll be from a different country. For many of them, English is a distant second language, and they struggle. So be careful in the words you choose for them to understand it, and be careful in the words you choose in terms of the intent that it appears to the other user. It's very true. Just like in internet, you don't all capitals on your text because it sounds like you're yelling. The things you know for internet etiquette and email etiquette apply here in VATSIM as well. Throw in plenty of happy faces and smiles and and cheerful remarks in order to ensure that the recipient understands that you're not trying to intend any hurtful words or unpleasant thoughts. There is always, of course, an opportunity to disagree. When that occurs, remember a couple things. Obviously, try to understand why. Uh, do not raise your voice or get frustrated. If you feel like it's something that is really urgent or that would be inflammatory, then go to a private Discord channel to speak to that person individually if you can. If it's something that you believe is a policy issue or a issue of intent, or there's really a problem going on, please let one of the staff know. All of us are trained in dealing and arbitrating those issues. So you're not alone on those issues when they come up. Do not get in a situation where you're frustrated or stressed out. This is supposed to be for fun. So if you get into that situation, you need to talk to one of the staff so we can help you with that. ATC tower. ATCT stands for the cab. TRACON stands for the approach and departure radar, and en routes are the controllers who are working between airports. So SOPs tell us how we operate each facility or airport. Uh, all of our fields that we routinely use have extensive SOPs. They have all the details in there. Uh, almost all the Class Cs and above, and certainly Orlando has SOPs. Some of the deltas have SOPs. Uh, and the SOP gives you everything you need to know. It tells you the frequencies, it tells you the runways, tells you the taxiways, tells you what altitudes people are going to be flying at. Everything you need to know will be in the SOP for that airfield. They all have a standardized format now, which makes it easy to open up one PDF, and once you've seen one, you can usually navigate a subsequent pretty quickly because they're all in the same format to make it easy to understand. Always review the facility's SOP, particularly before any training session. We will teach you and we will mentor you, but we cannot spoon feed you every little bit of detail about being a controller. You are going to have to crack some books. You're going to have to get your own copy of the 7110.65. We will provide the access link to get it. There is an expectation that you've reviewed the SOP for an airfield before you go there. If your mentor instructor asks you to review more information on a field, such as the departure procedure or arrival procedure, there is an expectation that you will have accomplished that before you come back to another sweatbox session. We don't want to waste your time. I'm sure you don't want to waste the mentor instructor's time, and you certainly don't want to get frustrated by having slow progress trying to get your certification so that you can get online. A lot of the controllers print their SOPs for reference. I actually download them, and I have a major VATSIM folder, and then under that I have a folder for every RTAC, and in that I have a breakdown for SOPs, letters of agreement, and that sort of thing. And I keep all my folders set up the same way so it's easy for me to find the various PDFs that are in there. They do get updated on our website. It tells you when they were updated, so you have an idea when you need to get a new copy, and we also announce it. If you're visiting another RTAC, it may be hard to keep track of all that. So, and some of the RTACs, they're only online, and you can't really download them. And for that, it's frankly, it's easier to still create a folder structure, but instead of putting in the actual PDF, a lot of times it's easier to put the link to where that PDF can be found. Again, the links on this class are available in Class 1. I'm not going to repeat them on the description on this one. Go back to Class 1 and grab them. And bookmarking them is a really good idea. So the important sections, these will make sense to you, is, for example, the operational positions. The call signs are important because you need to put them in correctly and make them look identical to what you show on the SOP. If you don't, then the audio for VATSIM software will not read the call sign correctly, and it will not enable your audio frequency correctly. There's, in addition to the main ones that are shown in this small picture here, there are also relief call signs. Typically, they have one at the end. So, for example, the Orlando ground that's in bold there on the second row, it says MCO underscore W underscore GND. If you are relieving someone, because we don't want a person to go completely offline and then the other person have to come on and reassume that position, we have a relief position. So if someone's already logged in as West Ground and you're going to log in and cover them after, and they're going to go offline, you would log in at MCO underscore whiskey 1 underscore GND. That way you can both be on at the same time on the same frequency. They can go over everything, and then when they log off, you're just on whiskey 1. It doesn't affect the software if you do that. So wherever you see it's got a bold face or an asterisk, it means that when there's only one controller for that particular position, they should take the bold face one. So again, in Orlando, there are 2 tower controllers available, one for the East Complex, one for the West Complex. When there's only one available on tower, the East Complex covers both the East and West side. Responsibilities will be in there for each position, so it'll tell you exactly what the tower is expected, and what's going to be in here will be the details. The SOP is not going to teach you how to be a tower controller. You got certified to do that, but it will give you the key information you need to make decisions as the tower controller. For example, what area of the airspace do you control? What taxiways do you control? And which side of the field, if it's split, you would control. The active runway selection will be identified for the fields, and they do differ on every airfield because the runways go in different directions. And they will be fairly explicit. They will show you the standard configuration for the runways and then the alternate configurations for when the weather's different, the winds are going in a different direction. So in this case, it's telling you that calm winds and anything less than a 7-knot tailwind would be south operations, or people were taking off to the south in Orlando International. They direct you to go to FlightAware if you're not sure, because FlightAware will pretty much tell you what the real world is doing. There's a good website out now called datis.io, datis.io, which is the actual website that pulls the digital ATIS from all the airfields that have it. And you can pull that up and take the drop down and select KMCO, and that'll tell you exactly what the real world ATIS is doing for operations. You can change the configuration, but if you're doing that, and you'll get taught how and when to change the configuration, or you'll see it on FlightAware or DATIS. You should make sure you coordinate that with your approach controller, because you don't want your approach controller, if you're in Jacksonville and you switch from western operations to eastern operations and reverse the runways, you don't want your approach controller to continue to send aircraft to land in west, to the west when you're now operating to the east, right? So when you're going to change those runways, you need to let the controller above you know, as well as if you're the tower, you need to let the ground know so they know where to taxi people, and you need to let clearance delivery know so they can tell people what to expect for the runway. Always, you don't have to review the whole SOP. I'd read through it once certainly, but when you're coming online, just review the area for the position you're setting up in. It will tell you what you need to know to set up your software called VRC. We'll talk about that in the next class. Again, for the audio part, the most important thing is to make sure you typed in the control position correctly. Definitely walk through the SOP with your instructor or mentor. Do that during your sweat box, and typically your instructor or mentor will pull it up anyway and walk through the entire SOP with you to ensure that you understand it and you're able to read the information. I often do this last bullet, which is, and particularly during events, I will actually write down what the operations are, and then I'll actually write down the most common phrase I'm going to use to get to a runway. So I'll put down what the active runways are, and whether they're for landing or takeoff, for example. just so that I can see it on my steno pad really quickly. I'll also use that pad for keeping track of what the current ATIS information is if I'm not working that ATIS. So I'll just start with A and I'll cross off and go to B, etc. as I'm controlling and as those things change. So taking notes with a pencil and paper is always a good idea. Letters of agreements. So letters of agreements occur between all the RTACs. They don't have to be an RTAC that's contiguous or touching another one. For example, we have had letters of agreements with Alaska and Honolulu, although it's virtually assured that you're going to have a letter of agreement with the RTACs touching you. So ZJX is here, so we'll have letters of agreement with Houston Center, we'll have it with Atlanta Center, we'll have it with DC, Washington Center, and with Miami Center. So we have 4 touching us. If you look at Atlanta, they have more because they have Memphis, they have Indianapolis, Washington, us, and Houston. So depending on the RTAC you're based at as your home, you'll have letters of agreement with the surrounding ones, and you may have some with distant ones as well. And those letters of agreement have stuff in there on for the in-route controllers, any routing that's preferred, when to hand off an aircraft, how high or how low to hand off an aircraft based on where they're going. Those are usually on tables and charts within the SOP. And then also we'll have some of these for visiting. If you want to, for example, go to Houston, if we will probably have a visitor's LOA that tells you what positions you can control without having to go through the entire training program. So, for example, this has changed and this slide's not current, but we do have different RTACs for visiting letters of agreement. And typically, as I said earlier, they'll allow you to automatically have minor privileges at their small fields without further training. You are expected to read their SOP, and their SOP format may be a little bit different than ours, but the information will be the same. Obviously, if you abuse that privilege or you're unprofessional or just really doing a bad job, then that RTAC may contact our RTAC staff and ask that you not visit there anymore. So please don't be that person. Read the SOPs and as always, be affable, able, and available. And that's it for Class 2. We'll see you on Class 3.